Alrighty, we got a few minutes given. We should be good to go then. Hello, everyone. My name is Kevin Grumman. I am currently flying with Eve Rookies, especially as their training team runner for the Alliance tournament. The uh, we'll get more into what that means later, but you're all here for the class about the Alliance tournament in particular. So, oh, first thing I want to answer is what is the Alliance Tournament? The Alliance Tournament is the biggest tournament that is run in EVE, run by the developers themselves to be the biggest. It has prize ships that are worth an incredible amount of money. There's a lot of competition that goes into it. There's a lot of time that people put into it, being the best they can possibly be on it. And there's a lot of money to be made doing it if you're good. So the Alliance tournament runs a little bit different than a lot of PvP does in EVE Online, where instead of wandering around systems, fighting over stations, fighting over sites and plexes and stuff like that, we fight in an arena. And when those fights happen, it is in two sections for the Alliance tournament currently, where the first section of the Alliance tournament happens, is called the feeder rounds. That happens in the Thunderdome server, which I can pull up here real quick. On the Thunderdome server, which is where I am here, this is similar to the old test server, where this is a test server. It's not Tranquility, it's not the one you're used to. However, there's some extra uh, commands and stuff like that can help you get around, help you do these practices. We'll go over what those are and what it looks like take a little bit more later. Very similar to the normal server where ships are the same, stats are the same, stuff like that. And so those feeders happen on the this year anyways, will happen on the 31st of August and 30 to 31st of August and 6th to 7th of September. And those are everyone who has signed up for the Alliance tournament, and their alliance, their teams, will be playing and flying in that arena on the Thunderdome server, so no expense beyond the entry fee of 5,000 plex needs to be paid. And that's per team, so it is a barrier to entry, but not a huge one. And for the teams, they will be in fleets of the format for Alliance Tournament is at 10v10s. The main broadcast of the people that go through feeders and were successful for this year are the 24th to 26th of October, and that is on Tranquility. So that's the main server. They happen in specialized systems. If you ever looked at your map and thought, what the heck is this UUA region over here that has no gates in it or anything, that's where the Alliance tournament takes place during that one weekend. Where it is on the live tournament, every ship has to be bought and paid for and fitted out wherever with mods that have been made by people, that all that kind of stuff, and everything ends up on Zkill as well, which is very fun for if you're going through the backlog, you can see exactly what people's fits are. That isn't a luxury you get on the Thunderdome, but that is when it happens, what it is. So basically, I mentioned a little bit earlier, where the format is 10 versus 10 in fleet battles. So each fleet that gets 10 people and can bring up to those 10 ships. And instead of it being based on how much a ship costs, or you can bring whatever you want, each ship is assigned a different point value. Pull up some of my pull up some of the spreadsheets. So, as you can see, each of these ships is assigned a point value, and you can count up to 200 points per team. That's how the balance comes out of what you're bringing, when you're bringing it, all that kind of stuff. The other restrictions for compositions goes that for this year anyways. It's changed throughout the years. It used to be 100 points and things were like half as many points, but 200 gives them more granularity. For this year, you can bring up to 3 of each ship type. So like for this one, you can see that there is you can see that we have 3 battle cruisers, 3 cruisers, and 3 frigates and a logi cruiser. So logi cruisers and ships like that, logi frigates are considered their own category. You can bring up to 2 logi frigates or 1 logi cruiser, whether that's T1 or T2, depends on how many points you got available. And so the other half of it is that, pull up my test sheet, that when you're choosing ships, each side will get, for feeders, 3 bands. For the main tournament, it will be 4 bands of ships that neither side can bring. And the goal is that you want to win. So you want to kill as many of the enemy ships as possible. If you don't kill all of them, then it'll come down after the 10-minute match time, 10-minute fight, then you will win based on how many points you killed. Hold on, I need to check what the overtime rules are, but if they're even, things get funny and weird and fun. So, do I have any questions so far on any of those topics about what the format looks like and stuff like that? Give that a second while I'm looking up getting my next stuff ready. Perfect. All right, let's go back over to the Thunderdome. One of the cool things about Thunderdome that you didn't get on either Tranquility, thankfully not on Tranquility, as well as even on the test server, is that when you are fitting out a ship, right? Grab my fit real quick and make sure I got it together. That when you go ahead and import a fit from the clipboard, sim it up. This is a simple jag fit that we're using. When you go to hit fit ship, there's an extra option here to just make it. So you can just spawn in whatever you need. Once it's spawned in, you can fit up the ship and get to scrimming. So the way that scrims work is generally between 2 teams. They will decide on like a date and time and what system they'll go to. Each team will have their own system that's like theirs to scrimmage in. And so they'll decide on a date and time, and 2 teams will come together to fight against each other, following all the rules for the Alliance tournament, what they'll be running in the tournament itself. You'll notice that when I pulled up that fitting, that all of these can be up to T2 pretty much, and you're allowed to have certain implants up to 603 to the 03s, but there's no bling, at least for the most part. Things get a little bit screwy near the end where you start getting into flagships and stuff like that, where bling is unlocked in the main tournament, where 1 ship can be blinged to the 9s, but for most of the tournament, most ships will be up to T2 fitted, and for E-War mods, you don't even get to use T2s. You just get meta mods. And so it's usually not that expensive to buy most of your ships, but your flagship that you can bling as much as you want, that ship can get very, very, very expensive because because they can give you a big old advantage, and especially with stuff like Balgorn, where you get bonuses for certain things, it will you get stuff like officer or webs, but that's a discussion for another time. So let's go down to the arena and show that off a little bit. So the way that these matches work is that both sides will warp to bookmarks on the arena. Usually for the main tournament, these will be the bookmarks that you're going to will be several AU away so that you can't see the grid. This is the arena that was set up for me, so I just set up these bookmarks to get it going. And you'll see that there is 4 bookmarks there, and 4 bookmarks, one set of 4 for the home side and 1 set of 4 for the visitor side. And so you get to warp to one of these bookmarks, which are on behind each corner, and then you can warp from 0 to 50 to the center of the arena. And that's why on the stream, when you're watching that, what you're going to see is what you'll see is people starting at different ranges to the center from different corners. Essentially, this introduces a lot of randomness into the system so that brawlers don't always start on 0 or always start far away. There's a lot of variance based on it. So for example, if I warped from A and they warped from B in this setup, then we end up really close, even if we warped quite a far range. Versus if I warped from A and they warped down from C, then we would be very, very far away. Even if we warped at like 30 each, we end up at 60, stuff like that. So part of that is that it will make a lot of variance in matches. So, as I mentioned, Kite isn't super overpowered, or Brawl isn't super overpowered, and stuff like that. But there's a couple other interesting features of this ring. You'll see these little micro jump units. You might be familiar with an MJD that you fit to your ship. These are like that. They're just anchored in space. So we'll cruise around the arena here a little bit. Go pretty quick. These micro jump units are spaced at 100 kilometers away from each other and not from the center. So they're in a cube. If you bounce between them, you can get quite a lot of speed going on, but people can give chase and such like that. The other thing is that in this arena, there is a boundary. At the outer edge of the arena is 125 kilometers from the center. Right, so the GMs have so kindly set up this bubble for me so that once I start getting close to the arena, if you've ever flown in Abyssals, you'll be familiar with this little red field around it. I believe that this will be active on the stream as well, so that when a person is near the edge, they can see that red barrier as you get close to it. You'll see I'm just about at the edge of that arena, and you can see it as you get close. Very cool effect there for the people here. Streams, they probably won't show that. They'll just be sitting at 0 and be able to see when people get close to the arena edge. And unlike Abyssals, where you can kind of edge out of the arena just a little bit and not die instantly, if you exit the arena in a tournament match, you will be instantly dead. This is one of the very big counters on rush comps in the arena setting, where you can't start more than 100 kilometers at most, or much more likely to be even closer than that from your opponent, and you have only so far that you can go before you run out of space to run around. So you'll see a lot of looping happening around the arena. Very cool stuff. See the micro jump unit? You can activate it just like an MJD. Once you activate it, you can't change the direction you're moving, and once you hit the spool up completes, I did time it pretty well, actually. Then you teleport 100 kilometers, same as a normal MJD unit. So this is the arena. You'll see 2 teams of 10 going around in it. Usually they'll, depending on the composition, they might stick together. They might be separate for most of the fight and starburst out. But that's why when you go to the stream, this is what you'll see is people in here with the MJDs, and there's another MJD at the center of the arena. A lot you can do with that to get brawl comps on top of kitey comps, or kitey comps to get away from brawl comps. All kinds of interesting stuff there. Before we push on into the different kinds of compositions you might see, the popular ones and maybe some of the less popular ones, do I have any questions about the arena itself and where we fight? That's an excellent question, Victor. So there's one of the extra commands that they give you. You hit the give all skills super, and now you have all the skills in the game to level 5 on Thunderdome. So that you can practice at max level pretty much. Once you're, if you're on Tranquility in the finals, right? Then whatever skills you have on Tranquility is the skills you'll have in the game. Give all skill super though on Thunderdome, you can practice in scrimmage, and in feeders, you will have perfect skills for everything. Excellent question. Excellent question. How do you get access to Thunderdome? So there is I can pull it up here real quick. There is a form that you can fill out from CCP where you request access to the Thunderdome server. Only CCP has access to the form. See if I can pull it up real quick. Thunderdome access request. You fill out that form. It's manually responded to. You get an email at the email registered to your Eve account. You get that email at your Eve account. It'll have login details and such, and then you can log into the Thunderdome server. And you just give all skills super, and suddenly you have all the skills. To get to the system that you're doing your scrims in, usually a team like ours has, set up in Serpentis Prime. You can set up in a system that has an NPC station, usually nullsec or lowsec. Then you use /moveme, and then you have a list of a whole bunch of systems in the game. This is a comprehensive list. You move to the nearest system to your target one, and then you just gate over to the system in question. So for ours, there's a move me that's about 2 jumps out, and then you just burn over here and you're good to go. You dock up in one of the NPC stations, and that's where you spawn in ships and such like that. Good question. Thank you, Laura. Any other questions about the arena and what I've already gone over so far? For scrims, just like the normal server, you get kill mails for ships you kill, and so if you kill a ship, you can see what they were flying in and what their fit was. Still follows all the rules and stuff, so yeah. Part of that is that on the main tournament, you can see the kill mails for all the ships that are lost in the main tournament on Zkill. It's in its own special region, so they're pretty easy to find. Any special skills that you would need to learn. So one of the most useful skills you can have as a tournament pilot is the ability to watch grid and position yourself. You'll notice that as I'm buzzing around the arena here, I'm using double click in the space to control where my ship is going. If I had my full team of 10 with me here, I would be watching where all of my buddies are, where all the enemies are, and trying to position for her in relative to it, and knowing what my ship does. I'm right in a Jaguar right now. I have a Scram and a Web. So what I'd probably be doing if we were in a kitey setup is, say my fleet's near this tournament bubble here, I would want to be keeping my ship between my fleet and the enemy fleet, ready to tackle anything that tries to run in and get tackle. If I was in a rush comp, one that is more brawling focused, and the enemy fleet's up here and my fleet's back here running at them, then I am going up to screen to try to catch something. I'm watching what's furthest forward, what can a grab. Being able to watch grid, see opportunities for your fleet to capitalize on and stuff like that is probably the greatest ability of a tournament pilot. With only 10 people on grid, there's just too much stuff for one FC to manage all of it effectively. Each and every person needs to be watching grid and controlling their own ship. No anchoring allowed, pretty much. You can anchor, but it's not going to be as good, and that's one of the big separators between the very, very good teams and the more middling teams, is every single person is watching for opportunities and every person is quick to capitalize on those opportunities. So let's answer that first question of fits being used. So in general, it's pretty easy to get fits for AT play. If if you're doing something special with your fits, usually you'll test it in internals if you really want to keep it a secret. Otherwise, is you're banking on, even if my enemy knows what I'm flying, that if I fly it better, it doesn't matter how much they know, right? I can. That's the hallmark of a very good composition. Is no matter what they bring, what they know going into it, then I will still win because I am a better team. I brought a better composition, all that. The other thing is that for fits itself, there's only so many ways to fit a Jag. There's only so many ways to fit like Armageddon Navy issues, on and on, right? So it's like, it's not a big deal if someone knows how you fit your ships. They could see the ship on grid and have a very good guess of what you're flying already, and knowing exactly what it is that you'll have. The other thing is, at an AT level, being able to identify what guns are on a ship, so that when you land on grid with them before the match is starting, you can look at their ship and know, oh, those are heavy assault missiles, oh, those are rapid heavies, oh, it's cruise, whatever it is. Another thing where it's like, hiding the fits themselves, not super useful. Hiding the comps and what you want to bring, much more realistic to be like, I'm not going to show my best composition to certain teams. I'm only going to show these ones to them, kind of thing. And basically, you can do internal scrimmages if you have like, get 20 people together, everyone is on your own team, and have two teams running at once, two teams of 10 within your own team. You can do that as well, but it's trickier and you get less outside feedback, which can make or break a lot of compositions. However, we saw last year, I think it was Tuskers in the final, was pulling out a bunch of compositions that nobody who had scrimmed with them had ever seen, that they hadn't shown in the tournament at all. Stuff like that, where it completely blindsided the enemy team. I think it was THL then. But yeah, that's part of it, is information restriction and gathering and stuff like that on other teams. Can you warp during the match? After you've warped down from the bookmarks and once match starts, no, can't warp between stuff within the match, which is another check on both kiting and brawling teams where you need to move around on grid. So no warping after the initial warp. Yes. Any other questions about the arena or anything that we've covered so far, or anything with AT in general? Before I start getting into what compositions will generally look like, or I shouldn't say generally look like, what some potential compositions you might see in the streams. So the other thing I should mention is that Eve Rookies, I mentioned a tiny bit at the beginning, is running a training team. So basically, as a training team, we're not going to be running in any of the live matches that we mentioned earlier. We won't be showing up on the CCP stream whatsoever. We're just running in Thunderdome for scrimmage matches. And so as part of that, since we're not an actual team, anyone from any team can join us, and people that don't have a team can join us. So if you wanted to apply for a Thunderdome account and join us with scrims with other teams and stuff like that, you could do so. And so we've been running scrims and stuff like that and things. So if any of this interests you, there's a way for you guys to get into it without needing to be the super elite PvP kind of people. Well, if this is just a curious thing, you want to fly a little bit in the arena, play with perfect skills, always fun. It doesn't you don't even need to be Omega, as far as I'm aware. It's a completely free way to do it. Yep, fair, Victor. Alrighty, I think that should be good. Let's talk a little bit about what you might see on the stream. Think common. These are common. The common compositions. So this sheet is a community sheet. So anyone could pull up a copy of this from Arian. Arian's actually run with us a little bit on the practice matches with Eve Rookies. She's very kind. She's lovely. So main compositions that you might see in a match. One of the simplest to do that you are already familiar with is called a rush. Basically, rush is a brawl comp. Let's pull up a nice simple rush. Nice simple rush right there. This is ham rush, so this is heavy assault missile ships. All of them run at the enemy, try to tackle as much as possible, and shred them down with very high DPS. If you're familiar with PvP, heavy assault missiles have like 15 to 30 kilometer range, depending on what the ship in question is. Very, very close range for in this kind of setting where you can go up to battleships. It's a very limited range. The main counters are heavy kite comps and sometimes control comps, depending on how they're fitted out. Lots of DPS, very simple to use. You'll especially see newer teams that aren't as experienced running rush comps because they are just very simple. Though I talked a little bit about the whole watching grid, moving around grid, being aware of opportunities, stuff like that. You don't need to watch nearly as much of that for a rush comp because everyone's going to be running at the same target. Everyone will sit on the same target until it's dead, and then they'll move on to the next target. You'll see that a lot with almost all compositions in the Alliance tournament, where everything will always be shooting the same thing, focusing DPS to try to break through reps. Things like that. Simplest, you'll see it a lot in the feeders. You probably won't see it super often in the main in a tournament because on Tranquility, just because it's easily countered. Since it's so simple, it doesn't have a lot of surprises it can pull out or extra wedges it can use to break through a composition. Go to the next one in Octo. You'll hear Octo thrown around a lot in by commentators, especially. You might also hear it called like max threat or medium gun spam. Medium gun spam is probably the most descriptive definition of it. In past ATs, there was instead of it being limited to 3 of each kind of ship, it was limited to 4. So you would see 4 battle cruisers and 4 cruisers, and then in either a Logi cruiser or 2 Logi frigates as the last 2. That's why it was called Octo. If you have 8 DPS ships that are usually medium guns. For this tournament, since we are limited to 3, you can only bring 6 medium gun platforms at a given time, which will, I suspect, create quite a few interesting situations where people are trying to replicate the abilities of an Octo comp, where, especially at the beginning of a match, Octo is very good at the term is snapping, killing very quickly a small ship on the enemy team early on, and that will especially apply to Logi frigates. So a lot of the times you'll look at an Octocomp and say, okay, they're going to try to snap one of the deacons on the other side before it can get it transversal up. They'll all transmatch that one ship and salvo it off grid as quickly as possible before reps can land, stuff like that, before it can get transversal, yada yada. And so, well, that's where Octo is the strongest. It is also very strong because it being gun platforms instead of missile, they are both able to brawl somewhat, load close range ammunition, and do quite a bit of DPS. And they're also able to kite fairly well, loading longer range ammunition and then moving around grid, not letting things like a rush get on top of them, hopefully. For this year, I think Octo. Oh, this is now my commentator speaking, by the way, of what I think the meta will be. I think Octo will be a little less prevalent as it has been in the past because of the instead of 4 each, 3 each allowed. Alternatively, it'll look a little bit different. I have a composition here of using an Apocalypse Navy issue instead of a Battlecruiser because it has bonuses to application and range on it, and then you fit pulses on it, can maybe replicate some of that high application, long range, and brawl capability that makes Octo very strong. And so the other half of Octo is just straight up kite comps. You'll usually see for kitey comps, you'll see lots of heavy missiles, so it'll be usually called something like HM kite, where you're familiar with, probably familiar with PvP fleets on Tranquility. Kitey comps will use their superior speed and usually a little bit of control, like hyenas, like Lokis, like maybe a Rapier or Hugin if you're Tuskers. Tuskers are very notorious for using Rapier and Hugin. You'll see them just burning around the arena, trying to stay on the outsides, and just don't let DPS get on top of them. The very similar strength as Octo, but it doesn't have the same brawl capabilities of Octo, because HM can load rage, but that's about it. That's a small DPS increase, even if it has better long-range projection. So it kites a little bit better, but it doesn't brawl nearly as well. So you'll see HM kite a little bit less. You might still see it, but it's been less popular recently. The other, another one of the main comps that you'll see that it's labeled for me anyways is as Battleship Core. So usually Battleship Core is most typical with 3 battleships at the center. The main in DPS wing being 3 battleships. This is a good example of it. So in this one, it's Balgorn, double Abaddon, and that's almost all of the DPS in your composition is right there. The major upsides for especially Abaddon comps is that battleships in general can fit short-range weapons if you're not blaster anyways. You can fit short-range weapons and project out pretty far still, especially when it comes to Abaddon and laser battleships, where you load Scorch on them and you can apply out to like 50 to like 90 kilometers depending on the ship in question. So you're able to project similar to an Octo comp while also having a core that is extremely tanky. That's why this is called like heavy armor. The one I showed up there was also a heavy armor comp, where you can't burn through the DPS of these battleships. It's so hard to bring the DPS off of them so that they stop the DPS incoming, versus like an Octo comp where you start going through the cruisers on an Octo comp, start going through some of the battle cruisers. They're not nearly as tanky as a battleship would be, clearly. So it just takes longer to break them, and you get to apply their DPS for longer. One of the main weaknesses is that even though they can project fairly far, if you're up against something that, especially more control-focused comps, like control being things like E-War especially, lots of E-War in control comps, where since all of your DPS is focused into like 2 or 3 ships, it's very easy for the control to apply down onto those 3 ships and keep them from being effective. So that's one of the main counters to a battleship core is control comps, which is our next topic actually, of a control comp. Where control comp, you'll see lots and lots of E-War. This one is a very control comp, sometimes called B-War for battleship E-War, where it will have 1 DPS ship and basically everything else is E-War. Where you got 2 Blackbirds, you got a Sentinel and a Kiri, right? Stuff like that, where you're getting superiority charges in links. You'll see that almost every single one of these comps has links, by the way. Links are very strong. So it's built off of the back of, if they can't apply their DPS effectively, then it doesn't matter how much they have. For this one, it's the Lashak being the center core of it. A lot of them, you'll see like arbitrator comps, where it's like drone control, where drones are the main DPS wing of it, and then you just have a lot of TDs. The, and if you have lots of, and lots and lots of E-War, then you can break up a lot of the enemy's like capabilities. So if you're going into a rush comp, Blackbirds don't get tackled because you have everything stand in front of them and tackle for them. Blackbirds get back up. If they get, whenever they get jams on, the enemy fleet can't do any DPS with those ships that are jammed. Stuff like that, where it has an answer for most every other comp, but depending, it's one of the most difficult comps to fly, just technically, because you're needing to coordinate all of your E-War all at once, all the time to be effective. The moment you get breakdown in communication or things get missed or you don't recognize threats that need to get E-Ward off, then suddenly this comp just falls to pieces so quickly. So one of the more fun to watch because of it, because it's a very much a expression of skill for a team when they bring a control comp like this one anyways. I think I have a EOS Ishtar. This is just a drone comp. Drone comps, these will mostly be fitted with like scram, webs, and newts and stuff like that, so they're competent in a brawl and very competent in a kite, where drones can reach really, really far. I think I have another battleship core comp. This is a whaler comp. So I mentioned flagships earlier. For the finals, right, the main tournament, you're allowed to bring a flagship. A flagship is a designated ship that can have as much bling on it as you want. Generally, it'll be a battleship. As much bling as you want, and that's the only one you're allowed to have of it. If it dies in a match and you who are still in the tournament, you can't bring it again. Your flagship is dead. This is a composition designed to kill a flagship. Generally, these flagships, depending on the team in question, will be very, 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 very expensive. They'll be like 200 to 400 billion isk kind of expensive. Where it's like, I want to have officer everything, officer guns, officer tank, officer her webs, everything officer, right? As blingy as is possible to get, because the blingier you make it, the more advantage you get. This is a comp built to kill one, right? Basically, Armageddon Navy issues fitted with rapid heavies, purifiers do lots of DPS to battleships, and you're just going to try to clip through in one clip of the Armageddon Navy issues, they all firing their rapid heavies at once, burn through one of the battleships. It doesn't, and the ethos being, if you kill that battleship, it does not matter how, if you lose anymore. You've already hurt them so badly that future matches are going to be harder for them because they can't field a flagship anymore. You've killed it. Let's see. Another good one is Tinker Comps. Tinker Comps, I think, are the lamest comp, honestly. Basically, Scorpion Navy issues for this one, you'll see golems used frequently as well in this same role. They all sit together. They each have a remote cap transfer on them. Whatever one of them is getting shot will get fed cap and keep running tank forever. The idea being, if you can out-tank them, it doesn't matter how much DPS you have. They're each fitted with crews. No, there's nowhere in the arena that's safe from a crew Scorp Navy, pretty much. And if they can't break you before you break them, then you win the game. It's just lame because there's no movement around the grid. Once you've cleared off the low end, you just kind of... Once you've cleared off the low end, you either win or you lose, and there's not a lot of interplay with it. Any other cool comps that I want to talk about? Crew Snipe is one of them that Tuskers pulled out at random. Basically, if you have a lot of paints in a composition, then cruises can apply, and cruises just can apply basically everywhere in the arena. They sit those typhoons in the middle of the arena, and suddenly they can apply anywhere, and they still have some mobility, unlike Tinker. And so they can do some positioning at least. But I think that's all the main compositional archetypes, at least. But that's what main compositions will look like. There might be a lot of variants, especially my guess is at the meta this year. I think there will be a lot of cenotaph because it's just a very, 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 very strong rush ship. I think it makes some extra stuff viable and existent. But that's what you'll see in general. You might see weird things. Usually commentators can read pretty well what's happening and explain. So this is the part where you get to ask questions about what compositions look like, what and things of that nature. Let's see. Okay, so Victor, when you're entering the tournament, the each match that you go into, you will have its own set of bans, like I mentioned earlier. The and so each set of bans you'll ban with a certain composition in mind usually, and you're trying and when each match uh, you can bring a different composition. Once you've warped on grid, though, you're stuck in for that match pretty much, and you don't know what the opponent is bringing at all until they're landing in grid pretty much. When you're scrimmaging, usually you'll do like best of threes of those kind of matches, so you'll see if you can. If you lost, you'll see if you can find a way to win into a certain composition. If you can execute differently to have more success, stuff like that. And so, once you get to the live tournament, it's just all down to that one match. Next match, you can bring a completely different comp with completely different bands and stuff like that. That's getting more into like band theory and comp de, comp design, where it's like, can this comp survive one of these ships being banned? What would I swap out for it if it gets banned? Like, let's pull up the Abaddon, one of my Abaddon comps, right? So if I'm thinking to myself, let's pull up. If I'm thinking to myself, I want to bring heavy metal, right? Which is an Abacore heavy metal comp. If I want to bring this, right, and the enemy bans Abaddon, I'm not going to bring this anymore. The Abaddon is uniquely strong for these kinds of stuff. It is uniquely tanky and uniquely has long range projection and extremely high DPS, right? If the Abaddon gets banned, I'm not bringing this comp anymore. I'm going to bring something completely different. I might bring it as like Typhoon Fleets instead or something like that. But if they were to ban an Ashamu, right, one of the main tackle ships in this composition that's supposed to run forward and be able to either screen if we're running or get tackle on if we're chasing a kite comp, stuff like that. If the Ashamu gets banned, I might say something like, okay, I can swap that Ashamu for a... I might have broken the sheet a little bit. But if I swap it for a Vigilant, which is the same points, which has strong webs instead of long webs, I can still make this composition work, right? So there's some parts of certain comps that is flexible, that you can swap out to different things. Like if they banned a Magus, I can bring 2 Pontifexes instead and not lose too much. Now, I will still lose a lot in not having these anymore, in not having my interdiction and rapid deployment, things like that. But it would still be workable. If they banned Magus, I might swap completely to a different composition. So I might choose my bans to like, I want to have this option open, and I want to also be able to have this option and this option open. Stuff like that, where there's a lot of theory that goes into that and a lot of practice of getting in scrims. I didn't ban this, I banned this instead, but it didn't work out for me. That comp isn't as strong, yada yada. All of that's very theory stuff, which is complicated and I think very, very fun, but a lot of people don't love that. And I can't, that's beyond the scope of this training, I should say. But I hope that answers your question, I guess. Okay, let's go to Victor here. Coming from semi-professional Overwatch team, we've usually ran with main shot caller and then the secondary shot caller. Tournament PvP has something similar to that. So very similar actually, where we have generally a team will have like an air quotes FC, the same way like a PvP fleet on Tranquility would work, right? Where you have an FC whose job it is to make like final tactical decisions. Generally, that'll be a team captain who is also the person that's mostly responsible for like setting up scrims and working with CCP and stuff like that, where all the technical elements. And and so that generally captain is very experienced and used to FCing stuff. So they're basically acting as FC. Secondary target caller, they might assign someone to. Generally, especially once you start getting into the more higher echelon fleet teams, those anyone in the team could make those same tactical decisions with reasonable efficacy. And at lower levels, if the main person goes down, they might assign someone, or they might just ask for updates on like what's this ship at, and look at that, look at this ship, what's the primary at right now health wise, and try and just keep FCing from a pod pretty much. The in general, people won't. You're not allowed to shoot pods, so there's no way to like fully headshot a fleet like there is on Tranquility, honestly. But that is a part of it, yes. So maybe have a secondary person who's designated to make tactical decisions. If everyone knows how to make tactical decisions, it's not a super big deal because people can communicate effectively, stuff like that. But I hope that answers that question. When you ban, is the ban only applied to enemy comp or also to yours? It is to both. And are you banning blind all at once, or is it one ban from each team that are banned, and so on? So in the past, it has been fully blind bans in past years. This year, they're trying out draft bans, where it for the feeders with 3 bans, it'll be one team, 1 ban from red side, 2 from blue, 2 from red, and 1 from blue. So that's how you get the full 3 bans from each side. In the past, it's been straight blind, and if any repeats happen, then just both sides get an extra ban to replace it, pretty much. The any ban applies to both you and your opponent. So if I ban Jackdaw, I can't bring a comp with a Jackdaw in it anymore, and they can't either. So if my comp I know is very weak to the Jackdaw, Jackdaw is one of the significant ships as an excellent anti-support, anti-low end. When you hear low end, that means like frigates. Frigates, destroyers, top end is like battleships, battlecruisers. It's very good against low end, and I have a low end that I need to stay alive to have chance at victory. So I'll ban Jackdaw, and I'll just be like, yep, and I can't bring Jackdaw either. I'm not bringing a comp that needs the Jackdaw, on and on. Have CCP employees played in tournaments before? I don't think that current employees ever have, like, while they were working for CCP. I know that Bjorn B has flown in past tournaments and then became a member of CCP following that. I think Jotun might have as well, and Zalis. That they flew in tournaments before they became members of CCP. They didn't run it after. I think that answered that question. But yes, any questions at all now? I'm fairly experienced from AT from a point of view of it's just I've always been very interested in PvP, so it's been a topic of interest for me personally. In the past, I know quite a bit about it and the metas of the past, what I think they'll be currently, stuff like that. I put in to commentate this year for Alliance Tournament. We'll see if I am chosen to do that or not. I have commentated for other tournaments in the past, like Alliance Tournament's the biggest one that has like prize ships and stuff like that. There's other ones that are run regular, like Captain's Cup, which is 7v7, and Anger Games, which is 8v8. Ah, the bars, yes. So on the stream, you'll see three bars, like you mentioned: defense, attack, and control. The attack bar is how much DPS a composition each team is able to put out. The you'll see that at the start of the match, it starts like grayed out and then gets filled with red as they shoot. The red is how much DPS is actually being kicked out of a composition. So that's like after application and everything, how much DPS is actually going into the other side. The control bar, or I think defense, the next one. Defense is how much EHP each side has. You'll see that's a blue bar with a little bit of pink on the end sometimes. The pink is in ancillary reps, so once that runs out, it runs out. But the that's how much health a team has left, and it's expressed as defense. The control bar is like how much E-War a team has on their side. So that's like how much effect of target disruption, guidance disruption, jams, dams, newts, webs, scrams, things like that. And the bigger that bar, the more they have available to them. So a lot of the times you'll see control comps where they'll have a massive green bar, a decently sized blue bar, and a very small red bar for DPS. You'll see rush comps that have a big old red and blue bar and a very small green bar. You'll see octo comps that'll have like kind of middling across the road and stuff like that. If you see a Lashak on grid, then you'll usually see that bar grow as time goes on and as the DPS ramps up. If it's rapid heavy compositions, like I showed you with the Armageddon Navy issue, that bar will drop off in the middle after about 30 seconds of firing as their clips go on reload, stuff like that. Yes, this is it. I forgot to talk about prize chips. Alliance Tournament is the only tournament that has very, very lucrative rewards. For in the past, it's top 16 teams or top 8 teams will get prize ships. These are unique ships that are dispensed only to the winning teams of ships that are above average. Usually they'll be similar to there'll be a T2 ship and a pirate ship at the same time. So you'll see these unique ships. They are usually very, very strong in a PvP setting. They're very, very strong. And so because of that and because of their rarity and uniqueness, that this is the only way to get them, and usually they're only put out one tournament ever, and once they get exploded, they're gone, which increases their rarity further. They go for obscene price points. Like, there's usually a frigate and a cruiser. The frigate will usually go for around 100 to 150 billion ISK. And then the cruiser, depending on the stats in question, will go between 200 to 500 billion ISK. This last tournament, they had a battleship involved that went for 1 to 1.2 trillion ISK. Teams that win will get multiple of these ships if they get far enough into the tournament. So there is a lot of money to be made. That's part of why these are so competitive for Alliance Tournament in particular, where there is so much money to be made. Hundreds and hundreds of billions of ISK to be made. For other tournaments like Anger Games and Captain's Cup, usually it's for skins, which are a lot less lucrative, but still very fun and competitive. So smaller, but not small tournaments in general. Yeah, and getting used to controlling your own ship, there's a lot of higher level tactics that you'll see talked a lot about in like small game groups, like transmatching, where you line up your ship's movement with the target ships to reduce the transversal on that ship, and so gunships can apply very well that way if they're transmatching and flying well and stuff like that, which is more skill based. Things like screening effectively, things like controlling range and pulling back when you're primary. all that kind of stuff is what makes teams go from having a good just having a good composition to being able to steamroll even when they're in very unbalanced matches where it's like they're in a matchup that they should lose, but because they fly incredibly well, they're able to, like Octo is able to snipe off multiple ships at the beginning of a match to get a huge advantage, stuff like that. Yep, hanger. They are hanger queens to the ultimate degree, where they sit there for eternity. They are not brought out super often, and when they are brought out, usually they are a high target. That's part of why them being so strong is important, because they are very hard to kill, and usually they're flown by the best pilots in the game, pretty much, because they're the ones that win them. Yeah, there's some controversy there, Laura, of people stealing ships. Yep, someone did lose a Python where they thought they had a bunch of support behind them, and it didn't come in time, so it died. Yep, the Python's the one that's 1 to 1.2 trillion ISK sell price on the hull alone. If you're paying a trillion ISK on a ship, you're gonna bling it to the nines. So it was bling to the nines. I think I saw an estimate that was like 1.5 to 2 trillion ISK total value. Things like that. One of the main draws of tournament play versus going around on tranquility is that, especially in scrims and in the actual matches and stuff like that, it is a truly fair matchup. That it is just between player skill and comp differences, and how you can leverage them to victory. Now, for me personally, I love that Eve is an asymmetric game and that you're always looking for a better engagement, always trying to find the way that you win a fight in unbalanced matchups. It's just a different mindset when you're going into the Alliance tournament, where you know you will get a fair fight, but it's how do I maximize my advantages and how do I minimize enemy advantages. Where can I approach getting into scrims and such? So I mentioned Eve Rookies, where we will allow anyone to scrim with us, literally anyone. The first thing you should probably do is apply for Thunderdome account form. The other thing you should do is on the EVE Online Discord. I don't know if I can actually do a straight invite from it. There we go. On the EVE Online Discord, if you go to the Discord and then go to the bottom, which has the tournament section, you might need to open in channels and roles. There's a section in there. I can actually pull this up on stream, I bet. Yep, on the EVE Online Discord, if you go to the bottom where it has tournament section, you can go to looking for team. And basically, this section is where people can solicit invitations to teams. So, hey, you put in your character name, your current affiliation, prior tournament experience, non-tournament experience, anything else about you, interesting preferred roles, all that kind of stuff. And if there's a good chance that a team is just looking for manpower, usually you'll also include your time zone, and you can get onto a team that's going to be running in the Alliance tournament. Versus if you want to run with us, you just need a Thunderdome account pretty much, and you're good to go. If you just want scrim time, you can also keep going with us if your team captain is cool with you flying on with us as well in EVE Rookies. Yep, and you can see actually Arian mentioning us in the looking for scrim section. Close the stream there, but yes. I hope that's probably the answer to the question, actually. That's not, that just is the answer. There's other places you can look for teams as well if you're like in certain NPSI groups. I don't know if NPSI Rocks has a looking for scrim section. I haven't looked. I haven't like checked if they have a looking for scrim. Spectre Fleet might, Fun Inc. might. I just don't know off the top of my head. I know Overclockers does, which is um, a small gang group, NPSI group. Yeah, other places might have it as well, but if you want maximum outreach, probably just the EVE Online Discord. Yep, EVE Rookies does it as well. Thank you very much, Laura. And for us at least, I can promise you, no matter how much or how little experience you have, I'll do everything in my power to get you going on stuff. Usually, since I am personally a USTZ person, during the weekdays, we have one or two scrims a week on the weekdays in USTZ. I'm trying to get one or two scrims in EUTZ as well on the weekends because that's when I can run it. There's a lot of collaboration with other people on other teams, like especially the more vet people that just want more scrim time. So it's a surprise. Like I can't really show you the spreadsheets like past scrims and stuff, just because I don't want to be showing off other people's information. But like it is amazing how much effectiveness we've had. I think that's mostly because of having people from other teams join us that are highly experienced and want the extra time can lend their experience towards these efforts of getting new bros up to speed as well. But yes, do I have any other questions or comments or anything that people would like to know more about? Yep, maybe next year. A lot more than 3/4 of the people that have been scrimming with us on our team are with another team already, and I don't know if they'd leave that team to join Eve Rookies. So we'll probably stay as a training team for a while, anyways, until I don't know, until we get some regulars that might be more interested. I don't know how things will work out, but as time goes on, we'll see. I would like to do my own full team at some point, but that I don't know enough to make any promises of when that might happen. Fair enough. I think that hits us up right around an hour. I'll give it a few more minutes for anyone else that wants to put in any questions, but I think that's all I've got to say off the bat. I hope to see people flying and enjoying the Alliance tournament more.
Warp drive active.
Thank you very much, Laura. I enjoyed doing it. But yes, I think Laura has a feedback form if she'd like to post it. I think that's about it on my end.
Requested. Docking request accepted.
Thank you guys very much. I'll stop the recording.